I adored this book. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It is a new favourite. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten, and today we are doing my January Smash or Pass reading wrap up. This is so much fun, or at least I find it fun. I literally go through all the books that I read in January and tell you whether I would smash or pass, depending on how I felt about these books. So let's just jump straight into it. I always start off with all the ebooks that I've read for the month, and this month I read a lot of ebooks. But let's start off with the one that is an immediate pass, and that's Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I was doing a buddy read with Ellie and Steph. I will have both their channels linked below. Yeah, I didn't like this book. Immediate pass. Not interested at all. It's all about this girl that cannot die, and she can see death. She can also see other ghosts. And fair enough, that's a really interesting concept, and I liked the idea of it. I really liked the prologue. I thought that was done really well. But the rest of this book I just did not enjoy. I found our main character to be really frustrating and annoying. I found the relationship between her and Death just extremely creepy and pretty much like grooming. Like, he's been around since she was a baby, constantly following her and watching her. That's just wrong. That's just creepy. And then we had this mystery going on because everyone that she's been in contact with has ended up dying since she was a baby. When she was a baby, her parents died, so she was orphaned, and every time she's been sent off to a different family member, they have all died. And when she gets to this final house that she's living at, the wife has already passed away, but it turns out that that was a murder, and so our main character sets about trying to solve this. It just felt really frustrating because one moment you're having her feel really silly and wanting like to be the perfect etiquette and things like this, which was just really weird. Then you'd have this mystery, and then you'd have this weird romance going on. I don't know, I just didn't like any of it, to be honest. Yes, you can argue it was a very easy, quick read, and it is that, but that's it. That's all I had to give it. I wasn't that impressed with the atmosphere. I definitely think it could have been ramped up. At times it was perfectly done, and then at other times it just fell flat. So yeah, this book is an absolute pass. I did not enjoy it. Then we have 4 books that are all part of the same series. So we start off with Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Smash. Loved it. This was so much more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. I had put off reading this book because I thought it was just going to be a really tropey enemies to lovers fantasy book, and I didn't really feel inclined to read it. I don't know, I'd been really put off also with thinking that YA's too young for me and stuff, which was silly thinking, but I just wasn't that gripped or wanting to read this book. However, I did start reading it and I fell in love with it. I really enjoyed it. The enemies to lovers part of this book is really small, especially in the first book. It's definitely a lot more focused about Jude and the politics that she has to try and maneuver around because she is human living in a fairy world and the difficulties that come about. I loved it. So I immediately finished that and then started Wicked King by Holly Black, which is the second book in the series, and again I loved this one. I thought it was fantastic. I loved seeing how Jude was juggling so many different things at once. There was a lot of heavy foreshadowing and that things were going to go wrong, but I didn't mind that. I was looking forward to seeing how it was all going to come about. I just think it was really well done, so that's another smash. Then we have Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. Again, another smash. I finished a whole series in this 1 month, which is unheard of for me. I normally take forever. I normally read the first book and then probably be like 8 months to a year before I pick up the second book. I've got really bad at finishing series, but this one, 1 month, bam bam bam. Loved it. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed these books. I loved the politics of it all, and that's what I think isn't highlighted much within these books. Like, whenever anyone talks about them, it's an enemies to lovers fantasy fairy world. It's not politics. It's not the way that Jude has to be so cunning and the way that she can lie to get out of things and the way that she does the lies and stuff so that you never really know what's going on either. I loved it. I also loved the depictions of fairy, the reality that these fae creatures aren't just beautiful and that's it, that they are actually quite vicious and dangerous to be around, and some are beautiful and some are terrible in the way that they act and behave, and also grotesque in their looks. And I loved that. I loved that depiction of the fairy world. I thought it was done so well. So all three of those books, a massive smash. I then also did read a little novella, which is The Lost Sisters, which is also by Holly Black, and this one you're supposed to read after reading Cruel Prince. I didn't. I read the first 3 books before I went into this one, and I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I loved it as much as the others, so I'm gonna go still a smash, but where the others are like a solid yes, 100% I would reread, fully smash these books, this one I would say is more of a lighter, you know, maybe like a fleeting kiss. It was nice. It was interesting because it's based on Taryn Jude's twin sister, and seeing the start of the reason why she went the way she did, because her and Jude take 2 very different separate paths on how to deal with fairy and how to live there. It was really interesting seeing that. It was a bit more of like a fairy tale as well, and Taryn's talking directly to Jude, and I really enjoyed it. I did like it, but I don't think I would reread this one. But it was a nice little novella anyway. And then the last ebook that I read was Hellbent by Leah Bardugo, and immediate smash. I loved this book. I thought it was fantastic. This is the second book in the Alex Stern series, the first book being Ninth House. It is a dark academia horror fantasy book, and I really enjoyed it. We're following Alex. She is trying to free her friend slash mentor from hell, and that's what they need to try and set about doing. I'm not going to go more into that because it is the second book in a series, but I really enjoyed it. It can be argued that it was a little bit repetitive at times, and it kind of had a similar-ish setup to Ninth House, but I really enjoyed it anyway. I thought it was fun and fast, and there was always something happening, and I loved the interaction with our characters. I loved getting to know some of the other characters a little bit more and seeing what they had to overcome. So this is an immediate smash. I loved it. I actually think that this book came out as, was it a 4.5 or 5 stars? I don't know. I was reading it for the 5-star reading vlog, and yeah, this was fantastic. I really enjoyed this. I cannot wait to get a physical copy as soon as that paperback comes out, which we know that's going to be a long wait. But I really enjoyed this one as well. All the ebooks, barring Belladonna, were some fantastic reads this month. I really enjoyed all of them, and I just feel so lucky that I got to read all of that. So yeah, that was amazing. And then we move on to the physical books. We have them in a pile up here, so let's just go through them. Animal Farm by George Orwell. Smash. I really liked this book. It's a smash for a different reason. The first lot of smashes were all for pure enjoyment. I enjoyed everything about those books. It gripped me and interested me. This one isn't really for enjoyment, but just for the sheer beautiful writing that was in this, the things that this book tackles, the way it looks at our society and translates it all into animals, and how the idea was for the animals to overthrow the humans, be able to live in this really fair society, and how that doesn't last, how some people's greed will cause them to do things that make that unattainable, and they do it in such a clever, slow, manipulative way, and I loved that. This is definitely a book that I can understand why schools do focus on it, and there is so much in here that can be pulled out and dissected, and for that reason it's a smash. It really scratches that itch for me, because every so often I get a book and I want to not just sit there and enjoy it, but also be challenged a little bit more, made to think about it, and that's what this book did for me. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. Only a short little book. Would highly recommend if you're interested in trying to read a classic but don't know where to start. This is a really good one for that. It's really easy to read, and I loved the things that it was dealing with. There were a couple of things that I actually dug-eared in this book because I thought those passages were absolutely fantastic, and it's just so poignant. So yeah, smash. Oh god. Then a pass. I actually think the rest of these books, we haven't done too bad this month. This one is pass. This is Argo by Mark Knowles, and I was really excited to read this one. It's a Greek myth retelling of Jason and the Argonauts, all about Jason going on this quest to get the Golden Fleece. And this first book is just that, going to get the Golden Fleece. And then there's the second book in the series, which is The Journey Back, because there are lots and lots of things that happen in here. I was sort of liking it before. I would say that this would have been a very tentative smash, but then I did some research and I decided just to do a little, and I mean just a little quick look into what the Jason and the Argonauts was about, because I had no clue. I picked this up because it was a Greek myth retelling. That was all I wanted to know. But then I did the research into it and realised that this book is just a tick box exercise for all the places that Jason went to. And it was like, yep, we arrived here, we dealt with this situation, and then we're moving on. And that's all it felt like. None of it really flowed together very well. And I had said how I was finding this writing really clunky. It was really quite frustrating. And then some parts would be good, but then it would go back to feeling clunky. And it was those clunky parts that are between the tick box of yes, we've arrived here, yep, we've arrived there, that was just not connecting very well. So this story ended up being just that, a tick box exercise, and didn't really expand on anything, and also took out all the mythology elements of the book, which was so frustrating. So yeah, this is a pass. I really didn't enjoy it, and I think that so much more could have been done with this book, but it just wasn't. So yeah, no, unfortunately that's a pass. I'm not going to carry on with the series, and I'm probably going to unhaul this book because I really didn't enjoy it. Okay, so a book that started off as a complete pass, but by the end was a smash, is Jade City by Fronda Lee. I really wasn't that interested in this book. The first 150 pages I just found really dense, really slow, and so much world building that was just plopped on you. I found it so info dumpy. But then you get past that and you really start to connect to the characters and the stakes get really high, and by the end of it I was like, yeah, okay, I'm hooked. I want to see what the next book is. This one, we are in a world where there is Jade. Jade is able to give certain people really strong attributes of like being really strong, really fast, or things like this. So it enhances them as their warrior abilities. There are two main mafias that basically fight over Jade, that control it, and they've been in this kind of tentative truce for a very long time until something happens, and then it becomes an all-out war between these two different mafias or clans. And I liked it. I really liked it. I liked the stakes, I liked the setup, I liked the fact that at the end of this book it is all-out war, and the different things, like different factors that are surrounding that. We mainly focus on one specific family, that one mafia family in this, which I really enjoyed actually because it gave you a lot more insight into those characters. You follow different members of the family. It was really good. That info dumping at the start was in a way needed for you to understand the customs of this society. Do kind of argue that it wasn't needed that much, that there definitely could have been less of it, but I did like the gritty feel. It was, you know, an urban fantasy. It's not something I normally read a lot of, but it is one that I enjoyed, and I'm intrigued to see where it's going to go in that second book, hoping that we don't go back to that info dumping. Considering that the 3/4 of this book, it wasn't like that. It was really action paced. There was a lot going on. You had different emotions going on because nobody is safe in this book. There are high stakes. Do you think it has the potential for the next book to be so explosive and so good? So I am going to give it a try, and fingers crossed it carries on with that and we don't go back to what was at the start of this book, because the start of this book was hard, and I've actually spoken with quite a few people that have DNF'd the book because of that start of the book. But yeah, so this was an interesting one. A pass to then a smash, which isn't bad. That's definitely the better way to be. Okay, 100% a smash. We have The Pig in the Derby Hat by M.A. Knight. I read this as an ebook and then I got myself the physical copy. I loved this. It is a tiny little book. This is the book that I would say pick up when you're feeling down. It is a cozy fantasy story that is heartwarming, and I loved it. I really enjoyed this book. I think this is a perfect book, especially because it's so short, that you can sit down for an hour, have a cup of tea and just read this book, and you will feel so content afterwards. I really enjoyed this one, and I know that this is definitely going to be one that I go back to and reread when I am feeling down. I know that this is going to be one that just makes me feel that little bit happier. It was just so lovely, and it was funny as well, and I don't know, I really enjoyed it. Considering it is such a short book, I think it's less than 60 pages. It's 39 pages long, so 1 hour. is all you need for this. And yet so much is achieved within 39 pages. You have the characters that are introduced and explained, and you really get a feel for them. You have the setting, you have the mystery element of what's going on, because we're following our main character, Clementine Trussell, and her grandmother is ill. She keeps having these moments where she's more ill than other times, and she's not sure what's going on. And then she bumps into someone. I think his name is Mr. Gout. He then makes her realise that this could be more supernatural circumstances. And I really enjoyed it, because you wouldn't think that within 39 pages that you can establish that much and get a full story done. He does it so well, and I really enjoyed it. There are 2 more books in this series, and you can also get a free, I think it's just a ebook as well, that's kind of like a prequel to Mr. Gout, so you can learn more about him and how he got involved with all this supernatural stuff. But I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see more of our characters and see what's gonna go. This was really fun for such a small little thing. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so then we got another book which I'm unsure about. So initially I would say that this was a smash, and that's Acts of Desperation by Megan Nolan, and I did enjoy this book. I think it's very powerful. It's definitely a book that not everyone's going to get something out of this, but the people that do will really be able to connect to it. I found myself connecting to the first part of this book and then not so much the rest of it, but I did enjoy it. We're following a girl who we never know her name, and it's an exploration of toxic love. She's in this relationship that is very toxic, and how she struggles in herself, that she is so lost that she doesn't feel like she can be anyone of any importance without somebody else there. And it's that show of how toxic that is. That mindset is awful to have, and that you should have your own self-worth. And I liked that. The reason why I'm not sure if it's a smash or a pass is because as much as I did connect to that first part of it, the rest of it I didn't connect to as much as I could appreciate what the subject matter was and what the author was trying to convey. I also don't think I would ever reread this. I think I got out of it all I could from that first reading. I mentioned in the vlog that I was reading this, the 5-star reading vlog, if I had read this probably about 5 years prior, maybe even 7, I would have got so much more out of this. So in my early 20s. I think because now I've grown in myself, I'm very comfortable with who I am, with where I am, and that's no easy feat to get to. Like, it's taken a lot of effort. Because of that, I then could see what this woman was going through and connect to it, because that is kind of what I had to go through, but also couldn't connect to it fully because I'm no longer in that place. As a result, I don't think I would reread this, but it wasn't a bad book. So I don't know, I'm very conflicted. I feel like this would be a light pass, which is weird because when I first finished reading it, I was very much like, yep, smash, really liked it. But the more I thought about it, the more I can say I didn't connect fully, and because it's a contemporary, I really need to be able to get that full connection for me to really feel that. And I don't know, this is why I don't have many contemporary books. Like, I've read a few, but I don't have loads because it's just not really my sort of thing. And while I liked reading this, it was an interesting read, I think someone else can get a lot more out of it. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go for a light pass. I enjoyed my time with it, I found it interesting to look at, but I wouldn't reread this one. I didn't know where that one was going to go. I hadn't decided. All the other books I had a bit more of a solid idea of how I felt about them and whether they were going to be a smash or pass. That was the one book that I think, depending on the day, I might give a different answer. We're going to stick with how I'm feeling today. Then we have another smash, and that's Madam by Phoebe Wynne. I really enjoyed this book. I've got so many tabs. There are problems with this book, and I do think the first chunk of this book was definitely the strongest part. So we're following our teacher Rose, and she goes off to this really exclusive school in Scotland, and it's an all-girls boarding school. She's going thinking it's a prestigious elite school for academic reasons, and then she finds out the truth and realizes that it's really not, that it's definitely a lot darker, things that the girls are having to go through, the way that they have been shuttered to what's going on in the outside world, the fact that they have choices and that they can choose whether they want this path or not and do things for themselves, that they don't have to be reliant on the path that's been chosen for them. I really enjoyed that look at it. However, Rose as a character does get really frustrating because she sees that this thing is going on, she sees how wrong it is, and yet she doesn't really do much about it. She is stuck with not knowing what to do. Yes, there are outlying causes for that because of the certain situation that the people that she's working for has put her in, so her hands are tied, you can argue, but also just her as a character, she is lost. You can see her mental state starting to crumble with not being able to deal with this, and that it was very interesting. Like, I wish that I had done a tab-in system for Rose's mental state, because even when she first comes, she does feel a little bit lost. She takes refuge in the Roman and Greek women that she talks about in her classes. She is a classicist teacher. That's where she seeks solace, in their strength, but she doesn't have any of her own. And so when things do start ramping up, the tension, the stakes and that are getting higher, she realizes what is going on. She doesn't know how to deal with it. She doesn't know what she should do to combat what is happening. And I find that really interesting, but I also find how her influence on the girls that she's teaching sets about this series of events that happens at the end of the book. So it was a rather interesting book, and again, this book went through ups and downs. It started off as an immediate smash because I loved it. I loved the darker tension and atmosphere that was going on. I loved the way that we were speaking about women in Greek and Roman mythology and how they were being used as pillars to aspire to, of strength. Loved all of that. And then we get to the point of where we realise what's going on and Rose becomes really frustrating, and I was like, oh, this book is going down, I'm not enjoying it as much. But then I started thinking about it in a different light and thinking about how Rose herself is lost and all the things I've just spoken about, and realised that I actually really liked that and I thought it was done really well. And so then the enjoyment went back up. So it was a bit of a roller coaster for this one, but I can say smash, and I do want to reread it and plot out Rose's mental state. I think it was really interesting and I liked it. I thought it was really good. So yeah, I'm gonna say smash for this one. The last two books, both of them are smashes. We have Across the Green Grass Fields by Shauna Maguire, and this is one that I love. This is technically the 6th book in a series. I always forget what one this is, but 6th book in a series. This one is also a complete standalone. So I think if you're interested in the Wayward Children series, but you don't want to commit to all of the rest of the books because it is a long series, as much as they are short little novellas, this is a really good place to start. The Wayward Children series is a series of portal fantasies. It's all about these children that stumble into different portals, into different worlds, and find the place that they are meant to be, the place that they are accepted for exactly who they are, and I really like it for that. This book focuses on intersex. Each book focuses on a different theme and how that can impact you and how that can be dealt with in different ways. I'm doing a really bad job of explaining it, but each book has a different theme that is running through it, and some people don't like it because it's really quite blunt and to the point, but I don't mind because it's a short book, so I can easily forgive it for that. And I like the fact that that's what Shauna Maguire's doing, is taking a different important subject for each book and exploring it. I loved it. I really enjoyed the depictions of this world. It was fantastic. We had centaurs and unicorns and kelpie and so many other things that were so fascinating in this world. I love the fact that, again, this is another one of those short books where everything gets built up so well. You can connect to our characters, you have the amazing world that is built, you have the plot line that all works throughout this. The ending of this book, I'm not gonna lie, I was so upset with it. You know it's gonna happen. Oh, do I wish it ended differently. I felt so bad for Reagan. I really did, but I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was fantastic. So yeah, smash. Loved it. I always love this series, would highly recommend. And the very last book is a new favourite for me, so definitely a smash, and that's Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I adored this book. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It is a new favourite. Yeah, what can I say? It was brilliant. This is by Heather Fawcett, and I do believe it's her debut novel. There is going to be a second book, so I'm very excited for that, but it's probably not going to be anytime soon. And in this, we are following Emily. Emily is a professor of Cambridge and she specialises in fairies, and she is setting out to create the first encyclopedia, so the first comprehensive guide to all the different types of fairies that there are in the world. She's almost finished, and the last section of her book takes her to this remote place. I can never pronounce the name that well. It's a village of Hafranskiv. I'm going to put the because I'm sorry, I'm not very good. So it's freezing cold, there's ice everywhere, which made it perfect time to read this because it's cold here in England. You see her interacting with the different fairies, and again, this isn't the Disney version of fairies, this is the folklore version of fairies, and I loved it for that. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, the exploration. We also have her academic rival Wendell appear, and I loved their interactions, their banter, the way they play off of one another. I thought it was fantastic. This is such a great read. This is done in journal entries, and there are also footnotes to explore more of the folklore of the fairy world and the different things that we are learning about them. I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, a new favourite fantasy book, so an immediate smash. So there we are, those are all the books that I read in January. I actually think it's been a really good reader month, considering that we only really had 2 proper passes and 1 sort of pass. The rest of it has just been such a good reader month. It's been really interesting and I've just enjoyed it. I've definitely got back into my fantasy era as well, which has just been so good, so entertaining, and yeah, I've loved it. So let me know, how did your reading for January go? What was your favourite book? And have you read any of these ones? But I've been talking for over half an hour now, so I really need to go get a drink. I'm gonna stop. So, thank you so much. I think if you've made it this far, then let's do something for this one. Mushroom. Let's go with a mushroom emoji. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. So if you have enjoyed this video, please do give it that thumbs up, subscribe and comment. Those 3 things are so important to helping this channel grow, so thank you so much. As always, my social media links will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the next one.